Well, thank you so much for joining us here on a Monday. A lot going on, and here to talk about it from the market aspect. I welcome to the studio Chris Swift of Swift Trading Incorporated right here in Nashville.
Morning.
This is a big week.
Yes.
I have a feeling it's the way it's shaping up here. Let's dive into these prices here on the grain. We'll talk grain first. And I wish I had a drum roll sound effect here, but corn firming up by 7 1/4 cents this morning at 3.90 1/2. It's even that is a penny off its high from a little bit ago. We have December corn 6 1/4 higher at 4.04 1/2. Now, I don't know if too many folks saw this one coming, but in the soybeans, they're really roaring ahead today. We have July 16 higher now at 8.37 3/4, and you have November up 15 1/2 at 8.62 3/4. Then the wheat in Chicago, we have July 16 higher at 4.81 per bushel, sitting on the high of the day. It's off of its earlier low this morning by about 13 cents here. Taking a look here, did I say 13? Is it more than 13? It's 23 cents. Let's take a look at Kansas City wheat. All right, we have July now at 4.39. That would be 18 3/4 higher on the day. Now, this is 15 cents off its low. All right, let's talk about this here for a little bit. Okay. Big movement in the grains. A lot of anticipation of the crop progress report coming out later today.
Correct.
That will indicate our planting progress.
Correct.
I went back and I was digging up the records here a little bit ago. From 1995, this week in 1995, the corn planting was 56% complete. We were at, what, 30 a week ago?
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to hit 50%. If we do, I'll be amazed this afternoon.
Yeah, it will be tough. Some of the areas up in the northern tier there, and it was John was speaking just a little bit earlier, they got a lot of rain this weekend, and there's even more called for it. In the northern Illinois, Iowa area, Tuesday and Wednesday, they both got more systems coming in for them. So it's going to remain light for a while.
A lot of replanting, I'm hearing.
And prevent plate payments.
Right.
The prevent payment has, I've probably heard that word more in the last 6 weeks than I have in the last 6 years. So kind of interesting that there are some other alternatives out there for some farmers that may reduce the acres again as we finish up this year's planting.
So what's going on with the soybeans today? Were they just left out last week and people feel bad for them? I mean, what is going on? Are they catching up in the spreads? What's taking place today?
I really don't know. Probably so. Grain traders all tend to lean the same way. So if you were short corn or short wheat, you were probably short beans too in some way. And so I have a feeling it's just playing catch up with what the corn market is, because there doesn't seem to be a real dire issue in the soybeans as what there is in corn, just because of the time still left to be able to plant.
So what about handling the forward marketing now? I mean, everybody has this dilemma. I mean, the way the weather is right now and the potential that we could be looking at historic planting delays. I mean, do you pull the trigger right now or not?
Well, you know, for old crop corn, now getting real close to $4 a bushel, $3.89, $3.90 for the July contract, that puts it back up to the highs that we traded all through from August of 18 through December of 19. So, excuse me, I'm sorry, 17 through 18. So we're all along those highs right now, and that's probably a good place to make some old crop sales there, and then keep your new crops open until see what the next week brings.
Just for a point of reference, I was looking at 1995. They were projecting prices on corn that week in 1995, this week in 1995, to be $2.30 to $2.70 a bushel. Things have changed. All right, we'll be back in a moment and talk about livestock next. All right, we're talking with Chris Swift of Swift Trading Incorporated, and he's based in Nashville. All right, let's take a look at the livestock trade here, Chris, and get started on this one. Let's take a look first at what's going on in our live cattle market. To the big board we go, and things have turned higher here, Chris. June live cattle now 45 higher at 111.72. August up, well, 8 cents at 109, and October up a dime at 109 even. But they had been lower early. Excuse me. Now let's take a look at feeders. On the feeder trade, we have the August contract down $1.15 at 144.35. September down $1.10 at 145.60. Remember, they were over $2 higher last Friday. On the lean hog trade, here we go with a look at June. It's down 88 at 91.50, and we have the July down 25 at 92.75, down sharply off its earlier high in the morning, about $1.50 off of that. But there's a couple of contracts in there that are a little higher, so we're mixed in hogs. What's going on in the livestock trade here on a Monday?
Well, you know, in the cattle market, it was kind of interesting because Japan on Friday lifted the restrictions for U.S. beef. Right. So that was a great piece of news. The market was a little bit higher, but we still got a lot of grass out there. We got a lot of feeder cattle that are out of the feed yards, and that's going to back them up just a little bit as we come into the fall of the year to place some cattle. The hog market's very, very interesting right in here because all of the data that we see coming out of China still contributes to them having a horrible problem over there. We're just sitting around waiting for the U.S. to get a piece of that pie. So
exactly. And the USMCA deal looks like the speed bumps in that maybe
aluminum and steel were all lifted. The tariffs were lifted on that on Friday, so that should help our markets very well too.
All right. So when it comes to demand, you talked about potential on the pork demand. Of course, China's a big, giant-sized wild card there.
Right.
But what about on the beef side?
Well, on the beef side, I believe the only reason that Japan lifted that was because of Australia. Australia has now gone through their herd. They are starting to see some dwindling in that. Were it to rain there and relieve some of that drought issue, then they would pull every cow and every heifer out of that mix and make for even more shortage of beef out of Australia.
Read a comment over the weekend from some folks talking about things down there, and they said, is this the start of what they call the big dry, third year of dry conditions again, and they're kind of worried about that.
Yeah, and it's serious. It's very serious down there.
I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you for coming in. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Chris Swift of Swift Trading Incorporated in Nashville. John, back to you.
All right. Thank you very much, Marlin. Chris, always good to have you here, sir.
John.